Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I was watching one of Caleb's videos recently, and it got me thinking about court orders and the problems that can arise from that. And this is the video I'm talking about. It's, I guess, the Attorney General's office actually called him to talk about his case, and apparently, if you watch his video, it's a wording problem in the court order that was done in 2017, if I remember the dates right, that has basically created this whole mess that he's currently in. And it got me thinking about my own situation, my own debacle in my court order. And I wanted to chat about this just to talk about how effing important it is to review your court order and effectively to not trust your attorney to not make mistakes. Because the problem is if you make a mistake, and this is, it's sorry, I'm stuttering. It's actually kind of interesting because if I come back over here, in Caleb's case, what it looks like happens, there's wording, and I should have wrote it down, but there's wording in his court order that says, child support and arrearages are retroactive, are terminated retroactively. And then the next sentence says, any future payment that's above and beyond will go towards arrears, which is completely confusing. Now, the problem that that it looks like he's rolling into is that he is going to have to go back to court to get this clarified. Now, the other issue is that since his attorney is still on record, the state attorney general's office can't technically talk to him because he's represented. The reason they called him is because there was some confusion on if he was actually still represented by the attorney of record or not. And then what you'll find out later if you watch his video is that later the representative from the Texas Attorney General's office basically says, hey, I cannot speak to you anymore because he's technically represented. Now, man, this is like gave me flashbacks because this is very similar what happened to me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my court order and I'm going to have it redacted. So let me see if I can just show this. So you'll see basically this is what we're talking about. So it's the actual document. Now keep in mind that whenever I did my little thingy, my little doo-woppy, I had no idea what I was dealing with. I was frustrated by a bunch of different things, but I didn't understand exactly what was going on, nor did I really understand the implications of everything. Meaning that if something's wrong in your court order, it's not an easy fix. And if you're dealing with a toxic, a high conflict divorce, somebody who's highly narcissistic, the likelihood that they're going to stipulate to a change is effing zero, boop, zero. And as a result of that, that means that if you have to have a change, now it's going to be incredibly complicated because you are going to have to go back to court. You're going to have to go back and have it changed. And the other problem is that let's say today you have an agreement, you both, you mediate something, you agree to something, and you both say, okay, the sky is blue. And then you realize that they didn't use blue, they used cyan. And what does cyan really mean? There's some green in cyan, there's some blue in cyan. I mean, what color is it? And if your ex says, well, I never meant it to be blue, I thought we were talking about purple, right? So you open up Pandora's box and you start over effectively. And this is what happened to me. So one thing I want to say, let me just try to pull this up here. So you got, the time of marriage, 21 years. I always forget that when I always have to look it up. It's been so long now. I mean, let's see, if you look at the dates here, separation was in 2011. The divorce was finalized the following year. But here's the first thing I want to just talk about, okay? And that is holidays and vacation. The party shall have the following visitation schedule, which shall supersede all regular scheduled visitation. And the only things that were included were Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. You can see Christmas, the entire break, with time provided to the other party on Christmas Day as mutually agreed. Now I'll pause right here for a moment. I wonder if I can highlight this. This mutually agreed. Let's see if I can. Let me see if I can annotate, highlight. Well, let me do this. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, well, so I guess it doesn't. I guess it doesn't work. Probably because it's not showing up as text. Anyways, my point is this. Because it said mutually agreed, whenever that first holiday came around, the ex notified me and said, "Oh, I'm going out of state. I'll let them call you." And I'm like, "The hell you are? The court order says I get to see the kids on Christmas Day." "Oh, no, that's only if here, let me bring it back. That's only if it's mutually agreed, and I don't agree." I'm like, that's not what the F it means. That's this right here. This right here. Anyways, so that I didn't go back to court for that, but that was a pain. But the problem is okay, so for instance, then it goes down to, Easter, whatever, Mother's Day, Mother's birthday, Father's Day, Father's birthday. Now, problem that I didn't think about is our birthday is 3 days apart, right? I mean, so it's like, it's so damn close that it creates some complexity. The only reason the 4th of July is in there is because the 4th of July is one of my favorite holidays, and I specifically wanted it in there because I'm like, oh crap, what if it's not? And I'll tell you, because of the way this thing fell, for the first 7 years of this disaster, I missed every 3-day weekend. Because of the way the calendar finally moved, like with my youngest, like a year ago or 2 years ago, it's finally moved. Well, that makes sense. 7 years, right? So it finally moved into the arena where the 3-day weekends now fall on my time. Which is really frustrating because it's like, I had time off, but I didn't get the kids. And there was nothing written into it. So I forgot about doing that. Now, this is why your damn court order is super important. Now, let me get back to, I just want to hit this real quick. Makeup days. Most common language, or not most common, but there is typically common language in this for makeup days. Ex never would let me do makeup days. I tried at one point when she was being a real butt about something. When we moved something, I said, "Hey, you know what? How about I want to trade this day?" Never effing happened. The other problem I had, and this might be something that you might run into as well, is summer vacation. Upon 30 days written notice to the other party, either party may have 1 week period, blah, 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 blah. So a 30-day notice. Now, here's the thing. Keep in mind, 30-day notice means you have zero time to make reservations. Like if you're going to if certain places, you have to register them out months in advance. So now I'm not saying that you want to basically say, all the parties will plan out their stuff 7 months in advance, because the problem with that when you're dealing with someone toxic is they're going to try to mess with your time, which is, I've made videos about that. So now, what am I getting ready to talk about? Let me see if I can scroll down here to find this. The one that really screwed me over, and that nearly cost me a huge amount of money. The other thing I want to just point out before I get to that is this. The parties are encouraged to use the online co-parenting program known as, quote, Family Wizard to store medical information, school information, calendar, yada, 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 yada. Never in a million years did I think that this was going to be a Charlie Foxtrot, because it was encouraged and not said the parties never would do it. She would not do it. There was one period of time with, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, that I paid for her account and my account, refused to use it. She would send me stuff. I'm just like, I answered on on our Family Wizard. I mean, I tried to force communications through that. She refused to do it. So if you are in a scenario where you need that third-party app, our Family Wizard, Talking Parents, 2 Households, whatever the case may be, it has to be ordered in there. If it's voluntary, it doesn't matter. It's never going to happen. Oh, this is funny. Both parties shall attend a 4-hour co-parenting class online. Yeah, that was a colossal waste of time. There was a period of time where I was like, per the co-parenting class that we both took, because we had to provide proof of attendance. Didn't do anything. You cannot get people to what do you call it? Follow this if they don't want to, unless you're going to take them back to court. Okay, I'm trying to find this part. I couldn't find a good way to, what's the word I'm looking for, to tag this. Let's see. Where is it? Commencing this, commencing that. Now we're doing all kinds of property and all kinds of residence, and this is it. This is let me so the division of retirement account. This section here I had to basically go through another divorce, and the reason is, the community property, blah, 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 and a date of separation on August 16th, 2011. Now, the problem is with that is that 3 days later, after that was the date that we basically said we're done, we mutually decided to liquidate the 401k. I took out every dime I could to pay off as much debt as possible to try to get us both at zero. And that was a lot of money. The problem with that, and I didn't catch it, is that since the date that was coded in here was 3 days before we did the notarized thing to say, hey, we're going to take this money out, they're like, oh, well, you intended to give her, the intention was before you took the money out that it was, that was the number that you were giving her. Fuck. Yeah, sorry. That was not the case. So when I sued her in small claims court for the medical, her retaliatory, because there's always a retaliatory response, was to basically file. And if you notice in here, let me just, well, technically, I don't even know if that person's working anymore. But it says right here, the parties agree to retain the services of this person who specializes in qualified domestic relations orders, or quadros, blah, 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 blah. So neither one of us could afford to do it, so we didn't do that. What she did do is she mailed this thing to the retirement account, and they basically looked at that date, said, oh, okay, well, this is the number, and was going to give her the all the money that was left in it. I had to go hire another attorney, kind of like what Caleb's going to have to do, and basically started up what turned out to be like a whole nother divorce. Now, the only difference, or the nice part about this scenario, is that I was not, the child support was already set to what it was set at. I wasn't, it wasn't like I was being gouged for more money and was being just financially crucified. The only thing that this was costing me was more, to happen to rehire an attorney again. And partly the only reason I was able to do that is because he basically did it off of credit. And it was because I was so angry. I'm like, you people just cost me over probably And keep in mind, prior to us settling this, I had to go through and account for that money twice, because the ex told her attorney, he's got all this money and all this cash. So they were like, every time they blinked, cha-ching, cha-ching, it was like dollar signs. And as a result of that, they twice asked me to do a full accounting of where that money went. And during the course of that, whenever this was happening, I actually called our accountant, or my accountant, and said, you need to tell me today what the tax burden is on this, because when you pull money out of a 401k, it is effing expensive. You basically lose half of it. And that's pretty much what happened. I got basically, half of what I could take out, plus, I spent half of it to pay off everything, credit cards, vehicles, everything I possibly could. The only thing I couldn't afford to pay off was we had a travel trailer, and I paid off enough to where there was only like $11,000 left on it, which was what it was worth, and that's what I ended up selling it for. But what ended up happening when we went back to court is they started to relitigate everything. They're like, well, dumbass, that would be me. He made bad financial decisions and defrauded Little Butterfly out of all the money she was entitled to. So, give her everything. And I'm like, no, it ain't going to happen. I'm like, no. So that took months, and I couldn't, the email, oh my God, guys, the letters that would come through were so from her attorney were so vitriolic about what a piece of crap I was, and how I, took money from her and all this other BS. And, and I'm like, and the problem is that for me at the time, I started feeling like, requirements creep. It's like, okay, I started out initially, it's like, okay, really what the intent was is this number. And then when the game started playing, I'm like, started doing, creative math. And I'm like, oh, no, that number's this. No, it's this. No, it's this. And I kept trying to shrink it down. And I didn't care. And to be honest, what I did during that time is I was so irritated that I played the same game she played back in the day. They would send over, basically they would wait until a couple of days before the court date and say, well, we agree to this, give us 90%. And then I would tell my attorney, well, I'm not sure. I need time to think about it. And I would wait and say, well, we don't have time. We're going to have to push it out. And I just kept pushing it. And then I would wait weeks until I finally responded. I was just being, because it was like annoying. My attorney finally got annoyed. He was like, look, just agree to this, settle this. I'll waive some money. What he said was, he goes, I'll waive $1,000 off your bill. And I was like, I owed like $1,200. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right, cool. All right, fine. F it. Done. This is basically kind of where I was at before. So, all right, that's good. And then the dude promptly, added an extra $1,000, closing out the account. I'm like, are you effing kidding me? I guess technically, it's still lowered, it did cut off some of it, and it took me it took me years to pay that off. That was actually, to be perfectly honest, I think I finally made the last payment on that maybe last year. It took a long time. I was paying $50 a month, $100 a month, just kind of whatever I could send, while I've been treading water for the last few years. So, and then to be perfectly honest, I wasn't in any hurry to do it because it was just, the whole thing was annoying. So, okay, the point of this, right? The point of this is you have to be, you cannot just trust your attorney, right? Rolling back over to, and I don't think my attorney did it on purpose. And I don't know. Like Caleb, and pull up his video again. I don't necessarily believe his attorney did it on purpose, but the wording, you got to read through everything. And I know it's so emotional, and I know it's so tense, but it's really important for you to take a break and, take a breather, I guess, and reread everything, or find somebody else who's super smart on this and read it. And you want to make sure you catch it. Like I should have, and I was actually looking at a lot of stuff. I didn't understand the level of, maybe not evil's not the right word, but the toxicity what I was actually dealing with, because I would have made other changes to my document had I realized what I was going to be dealing with. That's why I tell you guys that you're much better off with a more specific document that goes into more detail, because if it's too vague, then they're going to, like the holiday thing I was mentioning before, mutually agreed. I don't agree. So, you don't get to see the kid. That blows my mind, the logic that was used on that. Anyways, so, and I'm sorry. I mean, I feel bad for Caleb, because now what's going to happen is he either has to he either has to get his attorney to go back, open up a court proceeding, get the language changed either by stipulation with his ex, which is probably going to be no chance in hell, because there's no advantage for her to do that. Like in my situation, same thing. Like for instance, my the original agreement was, this is what the damage, the payments will all be for child support and alimony and everything. But, once she starts working, it'll go down. But for it to go down, she's never going to stipulate, and she hasn't, to make a change. So I have to take her back. I mean, if I want to make a change, I have to take her back to court. I have to do it myself, or I have to pay thousands of dollars to another attorney to file everything, to go back to court and slug it out. And the only reason I don't is because every time I do it, the damage kind of goes more towards the kids, and it's not worth it. The money that I would potentially get back, isn't worth the risk to my relationship with the kids. And I don't mean, that they would be like, oh, you're being mean, Daddy, and you care about his money. No, it's the other subtle manipulation and BS that happens that really negatively affects the relationship. And it's like, what? I mean, I'm down to under 2 years. It's like, okay, yeah, I know I'm over. I mean, she's working now. Apparently she just got a raise or a new job. And I know I'm overpaying. I know it. I mean, but is it worth it to potentially light everything on fire? No, it's not. Now, in Caleb's situation, he's going to have to do it, because he's got so much in arrears that needs to be effing erased. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to show you. Hold on. I'm going to try to pull this up. That needs to be erased to get his freaking life back. And they agreed to it. Well, I mean, okay, granted, I'm friends with Caleb, so, I'm taking off of what he's posted online, and I'm taking what he is, what he said online and what he said to me personally, but for instance, like I specifically, where is this? I wrote in on my thing, I wanted this language in there. The respondent waives her claim of any spousal support arrearage prior to the date that we came to that agreement. And I don't know if I can find it. Oh, it's right here. Okay. I also had them add in the respondent waives her claim to any child support arrearages for child support too. Because I did not want to, the little problem that happens with child support that people don't tell you is, let's say you file something in, 1 October, and it takes 6 months for them to finally say, hey, you were paying, not you were paying, but it's like, okay, a year later, 1 October of the following year, now we've set, this is what child support and alimony is. Well, here's a little secret that a lot of people don't tell you. Is now the arrearages start from when the court original filing was. It's not from that date unless you write it in that it's that date. So they were trying to, at one point, when they first did the temporary orders, like, oh, you owe X amount of dollars and you owe it from 3 months ago. And I'm like, there's no effing way in hell that I just paid this person close to $10,000 for 3 or 4 months and I'm going to pay it again. And that's what they were trying to do. They're like, oh no, that was a gift. That was a gift. That wasn't support. That was you just giving them money. But now you're ordered to give them money, so you have to do it again, right? Not telling you that to anger you. What I'm just saying is that's the reason why I specifically ordered that in there, wanted that language in there, is because I didn't want to have to be responsible for that. Anyways, so now what Caleb's going to have to do is like I said, he's going to have to go back to court, probably go back and have the transcripts of the mediation pulled up and try to find some documentation that has more clarity on what the intent of that agreement was to get this resolved. And the reality is that if his wording was my wording, he would have been fine. The Department of Child Support Services of Texas or the Attorney General's office or however it's done would have looked at that and said, okay, this thing erases the arrearages from this day. So, they click it into the system and find out to make sure that there's not arrearages or anything from the date past, right? So my point is this. Be very careful what's in your freaking order. Look at it closely. Anticipate landmines on it, and his probably would have been easier because, and I wish I would have wrote it down. He had like section whatever, section B says child support is retroactively terminated on this date. So, and that kind of was like, well, that was kind of weird wording, but maybe that. But the next effing line talked about arrearages. So anyone looking at it was like, oh, okay, well, then they must not have meant that it was erasing arrearages. It was just, it makes no sense. The reality, and I know what Caleb did. He probably did what I would have done. Arrearage, the retroactively terminated. It's retroactively terminated. It's it's done. It's done. So he thought, woohoo, great, I'm good to go, and it wasn't. And now it's like 5 years later, I think, and he's still messing with this. To be honest, I'll tell you, I listened to that whole video. I know it shows only 5 minutes right now on the thing, but I looked at that video. Now, I'll be honest, whenever there were pauses, I would double time it so that I didn't have to listen to the dead space. But it was hard. It actually was stressing. It was actually stressing me. I won't say that I was having an emotional flashback like PTSD, but it was right on the razor's edge, right? It was like one of those things where I'm like, man, if I got this call, if I was dealing with this conversation with this person, not with Caleb, but with them, and them saying, well, sorry, sir, it looks like there's some ambiguity in the wording, and we can see what you think, but it doesn't really say that. So, we would even have to get clarity and ask for, another court order for clarification. So anyways, now here's the thing, or what I just want you to think about. Because if you're in the beginning of this and you're listening to this, you're like, oh my God, this stuff doesn't ever end. And it's really, and it is really stressful. Just understand that you do get your life back on this, right? And I've said this a lot of times in the past. Your life's not going to come back in the way that you thought. You're not going to be made 100% whole. What ends up happening is your perspective, what you count as important, all that stuff changes. Like that anger, that anger that I used to feel even towards my ex isn't there anymore. It just isn't. There was a period of time where I would be really angry. There would be a period of time that if she would have got a job 7-8 years ago early on with this, and I knew that I was overpaying her, and that she was just like, ha ha, I'm taking all your money, and look at my new car, and, which technically she did do that, but it was infuriating me. I would have burnt the house down if I could have got 10 cents back because I was so angry. now I'm letting hundreds of dollars go just because it's like the cost to my peace of mind isn't worth it. Maybe, see, here's the crazy part. If I had a ton of money that I could afford to pay an attorney to go do something, and it was like minimal risk to me, maybe I would do it. But the reality is, if I made a ton of money and money wasn't an issue, and money is an issue, I don't know if like right now, I don't know if I would do it. And what I mean by money is an issue is I'm kind of in a scenario right now where my landlord who owns this place I'm living in is talking about selling it in a couple of years. We've kind of made a deal to where he'll wait until my kids are all done, but you guys know, the housing market's going through the roof right now, at least in California, and it's like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't afford anything. I can't afford anything. And it looks like even when it's done, if it continues to get worse, what am I going to do? So in some regards, $300 or $400 more are back in child support. And in California, there's this thing called a Gavron warning. If I, and if I could lower, and I think that would allow me to, with her working now and being working for a couple of years, I could push that, and I'd probably get anywhere from $300 to $600 back. And if I got that, then potentially I could afford to buy a house. But the reality is that it never goes simple with these people. There's already some issues, some underlying wedge issues that are happening with my youngest. And I think that those would just get blown out of proportion. And it wouldn't surprise me. See, it wouldn't surprise me if I did that. My relationships with my youngest gets obliterated. Maybe they decide to go live with mommy full time. I've looked at the numbers. If that happened, worst case, maybe I would owe maybe $100 more a month than what I'm doing now, or maybe less. I'd either be right around the same, maybe paying less, whatever. So, but it's one of those things where it wouldn't really be that big of a deal. But the big deal of it is that it could obliterate the relationship I have with my youngest. And a few $100s isn't really worth it right now. You guys, if you watch my other channel, we were able to go do spring break this last, a couple weeks ago, do some traveling and go see some national parks and go to the coast and stuff like that. It's one of those things where I'm like, it's not worth it. It's not worth the risk of what it could do overall. So I know that pivoted into a little bit of a rant, but just to roll this back up or circle back on this is just be careful what's in your court order. And before you sign everything, actually read it through and try to be objective when you read it and ask yourself the question, does this make sense? For instance, I don't know why I didn't think about it, but I should have thought about that date. And I don't know why I was looking at the date whenever we finally said, hey, we're going to get a divorce. Because the way it works in California, the way it was explained to me is that when you finally say, okay, we're getting a divorce, that's the date. Even if you take 5 months to file, effectively the date of separation is that other date, which provides you some legal stuff. And I think I was just so frustrated that I was wanting the date to be that second. I don't mean second like the number second. I mean that particular moment in time is because I wanted it to be done, and I wanted that to happen. So I missed it, right? Caleb missed the wording in his. Take your court, look at it, be deliberate. If you're having a panic attack, set it aside, look at it later. You don't have to sign it instantaneously. Time, the one thing that we tend to forget on this is that time isn't necessarily our friend, but at the same time, we don't really have to do everything instantaneously. So if you need some extra time, to be able to process it and look at it, do that. And the final word I just want to say is, do not expect your attorney to catch everything. The problem is they're human. You know, they probably have 15 other clients. They're trying to do their thing, and maybe they just miss it, or maybe they didn't think about it, or maybe they got your case confused with someone else and they're not, they're just scatterbrained. I don't know, but just be careful. Anyways, curious what you think about any of this. Maybe you think I've lost my mind on some of this. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll catch you on the next video.